Imagine a voice so fragile it felt like a secret being whispered directly to you, a sound that didn't belong on a grand stage but in the quiet of your own headphones. This was the voice of Ben Shi, a singer who seemed to materialize not from a record label's boardroom but from the very heart of the early 2000s Chinese internet. She was a phenomenon built on authenticity in an era of polish, a digital ghost who sang about loneliness and fleeting dreams with a rawness that millions of young people clung to as their own. Her self-founded brand, Go, was proof that you could challenge the entire pop machine with just a laptop and a following. But the same digital ecosystem that crowned her would soon turn on her with a ferocity that no one could have predicted, leading to a disappearance so complete it felt like an orchestrated erasure. This is the story not just of a singer, but of the controversies, the whispers, and the haunting question of what happens when an artist becomes too real for the system that created them. Ben Shi's early rise was deceptively peaceful, a Cinderella story for the digital age. But as her fame grew from a cult following to a national phenomenon, the first cracks began to show, and they were deeply controversial. The very authenticity that fans adored became a point of attack. Anonymous forums, once her home turf, began to fill with venomous posts mocking her unpolished appearance and her emotionally vulnerable lyrics, which critics labeled as attention-seeking and too dark for public consumption. Rumors began to swirl, completely unsubstantiated but spread with viral speed, that she used ghostwriters, that her entire lonely girl persona was a carefully constructed marketing ploy by her fledgling brand, Go. The web that once loved her for being ordinary now seemed to punish her for not being extraordinary enough. This was the first true scandal she faced, the court of public opinion putting her on trial for the crime of her own authenticity. The backlash wasn't just about envy, it was a cultural clash. In an industry and a society that often values harmonious perfection, Ben Shi's public fragility was a controversial act. She wasn't just singing sad songs, she was openly flouting the unspoken rule that celebrities, especially young women, should project strength and grace under pressure. The controversy soon escalated from online gossip to the brutal realities of the music business. Around 2015, whispers of a major contract dispute began to leak into entertainment blogs. The details were murky, fueled by anonymous sources claiming that Ben Shi was clashing with new management over the ownership of her music and the control of her Go brand. Fans were torn. Some saw her as a righteous independent artist fighting corporate vampires trying to steal her life's work. Others speculated that she was being difficult, ungrateful for the opportunities that fame had brought her. This was no longer just about hurt feelings. This was a high-stakes battle over who owned a voice that belonged to millions. The industry insiders watched closely, knowing this case would set a precedent. Could a digital native artist truly maintain control, or were they all destined to be chewed up by the traditional machinery? The scandal painted a troubling picture of Ben Shi as being emotionally volatile and hard to work with, a narrative that dangerously amplified the criticism of her fragile online persona. The pressure was clearly mounting, and her online presence became a cryptic canvas for fans to project their fears onto. Her posts grew more sparse and philosophical, with lines like, "Sometimes the songs stop before the story does," which fans would later look back on as a chilling omen. Then in December of 2016, the ultimate controversy erupted, one that was defined not by what was said, but by an overwhelming, deafening silence. The news broke not with a formal press release, but with a single, unverified sentence on a small blog. Singer Ben Shi has passed away. The internet exploded, but the explosion was quickly contained. Mainstream outlets reported the story with a clinical, detached brevity that felt unnatural. There was no cause of death mentioned, no statements from family, no tributes from fellow artists. It was as if the life of one of China's most recognizable digital voices was being summarized in a footnote. And then the real shock began, the digital erasure. Her social media pages were frozen or vanished. Memorial posts and fan tributes were shadow banned or deleted outright. Her music was temporarily scrubbed from major platforms. The public was being denied not just an explanation, but the very right to grieve. This silencing became the biggest scandal of all. It felt less like a tragedy and more like a cover-up. In the absence of facts, a wildfire of speculation consumed fan communities. Was it the unbearable pressure of fame that finally broke her? Was it a health issue the industry didn't want to address? Or was it something more sinister, a direct consequence of her battles with the powers that be? The lack of transparency fueled 1,000 conspiracy theories, each more haunting than the last. The system wasn't just managing a death, it was administering a digital disappearance, and the public could feel it. In the years that followed, the controversy surrounding Ben Shi's legacy only deepened, transforming her from a singer into a permanent symbol. The entertainment industry's handling of her death became a a case study in risk management. Insiders, speaking anonymously years later, described a standard protocol to remove noise before it becomes a narrative. Public mourning, if not carefully guided, could spiral into public criticism of the very systems that may have contributed to her struggles. The relentless pressure, the toxic online culture, the cutthroat business practices. For an industry worth billions, built on predictability and positive branding, the story of a young woman crushed by the machine was the worst kind of controversy. It was safer and more profitable to gently edit her out than to confront the uncomfortable questions her life and death raised. But this attempt to control the story backfired spectacularly. The silence imposed from the top only amplified the whispers from below. Fans, in an act of digital rebellion, began to resurrect her themselves. Bootleg tracks resurfaced on Bilibili, lyric snippets became coded memes on Dubon, and a new generation of listeners who weren't even fans when she was alive discovered her music and with it the mystery of her erasure. The controversy was no longer about what happened to her, but about who gets to control our collective memory. Benshi's second life online is a testament to the fact that in the digital age, you cannot delete a feeling. The very technology used to silence her became the tool for her resurrection. Her story remains a shocking cautionary tale, a ghost in the machine of Chinese entertainment, a reminder that sometimes the most controversial thing an artist can be is truly unforgettably human.